about the do's and don'ts of high-performance marketers. I'm sure it should be high-performance marketing, but we've had numerous discussions about that. So, I first would like to thank Autopilot very much for being the sponsor for this. That's amazing. All the food and anything that you would bring tonight is thanks to them and the venue. And also to Work-Life for giving us the space. So, without further ado, Guy Marion, CMO at Autopilot, world-renowned growth speaker, is going to talk about customer journey marketing. Great. Thanks again.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm over from San Francisco right now and going to Amsterdam on Friday, along with Dylan, who's in the back here. Some of you may know he's spoken at a previous Man of the Coat event and has been running support in Europe for a while and is soon transitioning partners. We also have Victor from Skimlinks here who's presenting afterwards and talking about what they're doing with customer journey marketing and Autopilot at Skimlinks. So thank you for being willing to do such a thing. So before I get started, just to get a sense of the room, how many people here have heard of today's event through, was it the hackers, growers, and
hipsters, hackers,
and hustlers? Yeah, how many people have heard through that? Okay. How about through other OMN related emails and so on? Okay. How about from Autopilot, either online or emails? All right. Anything else, like Eventbrite, I guess, maybe? Yeah, okay. Got it. All right. That's about right. It's usually about a third, but that's a lot. Great. The other question is, in terms of who is here, how many people would call yourselves marketers? Okay. Product and engineering? Okay. And founders/executives? Good. All right, cool. So good mix. One last question. How many people are using Autopilot or HubSpot or marketing automation of some sort? And then maybe nothing, like either email marketing, email software, or nothing else. So email marketing, yeah. All right, good. So again, my name's Guy. Looks like we have a good mixture of different folks from different areas today. I'm the CMO and head of growth at Autopilot. We are a San Francisco-based company with our core engineering in Sydney. The founders are actually 3 Australian brothers who I work closely with. I joined the company sort of pre-revenue, pre-customers in mid-2014, right after we pivoted the company and went through an interesting story I'll share a little bit later on today. I'm currently have actually been traveling a bit, as you mentioned. I've been in Sydney about a month ago for a workshop on how to turn loyal customers into repeat buyers. Another workshop in San Francisco last week or actually in New York, excuse me, on how Autopilot itself has grown in the last 2.5 years and the tactics and sort of the stack that we've used there. And then yesterday I just spoke with the Growth Marketing Conference. I was there talking about how to automate your growth engine. So today's a different topic. It's actually the first time I'm giving this talk. It's about what are the attributes of a high-performing marketer. And this plays from both experience working with lots of customers, as well as my teams, as well as about 2,000 customers we've been working with pretty closely. We did a bunch of research recently, so I'm going to share that. So a little about Autopilot. We're visual marketing software for automating customer journeys. It's a modern take of marketing automation, lighter and easier to use. We've got over 2,000 customers in the past 2.5 years. That includes Microsoft, Atlassian. So really, we're very fortunate to have grown with mostly you can try to buy online. A lot of our customers are startups and SMBs, and then we have some mid-market companies and companies like Microsoft as well. We're integrated with over 700 different services, so Salesforce CRM, Segment, Zapier, a bunch of different apps. Basically, you can tie together all your data and automate your different types of journeys, onboarding new customers, sending newsletters, reactivating old leads, assigning leads to sales and CRM. So a lot you can do with it. And the reason we exist is because we believe that market automation has really just been, we sort of see the universe as on this spectrum of affordability and accessibility, and these services have been too expensive and too hard to use for too long. And so we've built this visual interface that makes it possible to drag and drop shapes and triggers actions and conditions and build out all sorts of different sequences within Autopilot we call journeys. And in doing so, create a whole broad range of of different types of automated multi-channel messaging, so emails, SMS, in-app, and so on. Basically we're about empowering marketers to be more creative at scale. And with that, that's a good transition into today's talk, which is, again, the common traits that we've really extracted from working with thousands of marketers and users in the last few years. And we'll start off by talking about sort of 4 key traits: creative, analytical, adaptive, and digital citizens. So starting with creative, one of the first, and really when I talk today, it's going to be about traits of individuals, but also kind of thinking about it from what are the elements that you need in a team, in a high-performing team. And this goes to research we did in November last year. We surveyed 505 marketers, mid to senior level, as well as growth and engineers, and did that with a global audience, and then asked the question, what percentage of your goals are you attaining this year? And we looked at everybody who's at 80% or above and classified those as the high performers, and looked at everybody else and asked a whole load of tactical and strategic questions about what they're doing, and then ran a lot of comparisons. So a lot of today draws some basis from that. So the first thing is creative. One thing to look for is creative aptitude, and it's something that at the end of the day, even with automation and retargeting and the ways in which we gather and profile our customers and users these days, the core sort of horsepower that fuels a lot of what we can do with that is original and outside the box thinking, whether it's long form content or video or ad copy. So creativity remains that power. So one thing really that we look for is natural content generators who create a lot of unique original content almost compulsively, and then naturally engage online and sort of expand their reach, building around that. So some examples, strong points of view. So we had a blog post last week that was immediately shared, over 100 times. Simply, paid advertising sucks. Here's why you should use it. So taking a strong point of view is one area in which creativity sort of manifests and results in a lot of online sharing. Rich data, so we do a lot of these annual state of industry reports that does gather inputs from a lot of different sources. It's a great hack, by the way, is set up a SurveyMonkey, go to cint.com, you can pay $2,000 and get 500 responses from all over the world, and actually we got 17 press pickups from there. Dylan's telling me to speak up. Can you hear me in the back? No? Okay. So third area, domain expertise. So really, as part of your content mix, making sure that you have domain experts on staff in whatever that area is, and then using the SEO approaches to identify the search terms that we're looking for, and identifying what are the core and unique perspectives you have and expertise you have in-house to be able to put forward content that people are going to search for and use. Like iceberg content. So this is literally an iceberg, but every company has their version of, where you're only scratching the surface, but below there's a lot. It's a great way to be able to describe large areas of topics and areas of interest to the broader community. Using surprise, so surprising and delighting your audience. Whether that's with new features that you release, or in the case of content, this was a golden ticket that we embedded into our journey at a conference a few years ago. And anybody who signed up for a trial during that conference and came over from a Twilio booth that had been referred to us, received this golden ticket, which gave them a chance to win a $250 narrative clip, which was one of our customers at the time. And it created a whole bunch of buzz online and got pumped up at the top of Dreamforce. So, and then also stirring controversy. We have Josh Fector is a very active online growth marketer who's part of Autopilot, and he writes a lot of posts that sort of drive people down to what are the motivating factors that get them out of bed in the morning, and works with all sorts of different characters around the web. And it generally has a big impact on how he's able to be extend himself and amplify himself online. Another thing is empathy. So the third aspect of creativity is being empathetic with the target audience. So we do a lot of effort, a lot of work on who are the core personas that Autopilot works with and focuses on. The director of growth, which can span a number of different areas. Email Emily, as we call it, which is a frustrated marketer who's typically not able to be as targeted as they would like to be using email software, and then executive LA. So, so when interviewing for people, some of the key questions, that I ask are to wonder about what are the creative campaigns that have most inspired them in the last 12 months in the industry, asked to include a project as part of the hiring process, written design, email copy, can be whatever they're most comfortable with, but exemplifies their ability to come up with unique points of view. And then of course, review portfolio and work samples from past work. So second is analytical. So whereas, right brain for thinking creativity, the essential left side of the brain is being highly analytical on how we work. So the entire world is trackable now, as we all know. And so, the best marketers are those who are being experimental. So we were talking yesterday at GMC about, there's this concept of silver bullets that everyone's always looking for. And I really like the description that actually what works is a salvo of lead bullets as opposed to one silver bullet. And typically you look at sort of 2 to 3 channels of growth that drive a lot of your historical and future growth in a company. And it's really focusing on those and doubling down hard and really prioritizing, but at the same time having an experimental element of the way you work. And then that ties into being disciplined. So establishing repeatable processes, not one-off tactics, and that's what grows startups. So, basically it's about having a process of prioritizing ideas and turning and testing them into ideas. My last company was Zendesk before I joined Autopilot, and there we had an internal growth team. A lot of what we did was bring together viewpoints of either customer-facing or engineering elements of the company and identify and prioritize key growth tactics that span all areas of the customer journey. So, for example, we do a lot of this is using our own product. We test out if you want to put some, if you want to nurture your customers, what's more effective? Take them through a curated approach where if they click content, you send them more related content, or just front load your most popular content that you may have and accelerate them based on click scoring. And what we've seen is actually a curated approach so far is more effective. It has lower unsubscribes and much higher trial conversion rates. Typically about, in that case, about more than 3x our base conversion rate. So it's about being hypothesis driven importantly. So going to each experiment, saying what's our null hypothesis, what is the baseline that we would expect, that we would not expect any of our treatments to disprove, and then see if your treatments do disprove them in a significant fashion during the course of that experiment. And the third piece to being analytical, of course, is developing good data habits. So what are good data habits? Things like automated dashboards and frameworks that automatically deliver results to you on a regular basis. I wake up every morning and I see a dashboard that provides to me insights about everything from signups and where our sources are to where revenue attribution is coming from to conversion and a whole load of others. And that's a morning dashboard that we've automated and built just by being focused on that from early on. Another is extracting insights and really understanding. You need to own the understanding of what you're seeing with customers because ultimately the benefit of data is going to provide actionable output, whether that's in the form of emails or online strategies or ad copy that's going to generate the results that ultimately is what's going to drive business for the company, build pipeline, as well as gain new recognition within the organization. So this is an example I'll show in a few minutes, but we use Infer, which is a predictive scoring platform that is integrated with our service, and we use that to cluster and actually categorize all of our different lead sources based on a broad set of demographic, technology use, and activity measures. The third thing is keeping careful records of what you're doing. So, we have logs of all the different experiments that are being run and when major changes are made. So when you run back in time and you want to do that correlational work, you can go easily and see what you've done. You always think you remember it and you never do. And just getting to basic habits like that goes a long way as you make cases downstream of what's working and what's not. So the third key feature is adaptive. So this is Mike Sharkey. This is the CEO and founder of Autopilot. He always says that he founded Autopilot so he could afford to fly, and he wanted to fly so he could pick up girls. So that was his story as a 16-year-old living in Sydney. The real fact is that he also, for years as a consultant, was helping companies pull their data together and automate their marketing, and then said, let's productize this and make this super easy so everybody can do it, because it was so frustrating to see people not be able to, be empowered to be able to build out automated journeys. So this is a Business Insider article about how it wasn't smooth flying. So, as I said, the company pivoted. We started off as more of an enterprise service, wasn't really picking up the traction we wanted, and it was taking too much to support customers. And Mike made this tough decision to scrap the first generation of 3 products, go back to ground zero, rebuild the same platform. We started the second version of Autopilot, which was about mid-2014 this happened. So it takes a lot to make that kind of decision, but it's a very large version. I mean, Slack went through a similar thing. They built a game and they came out with a chat app, but it came from experience and trial and erroring and being willing to commit to a process and then sticking to your gut once you've seen results and seen data there. But by abandoning disproven methods quickly and learning from mistakes, adaptive also means resilient in the face of challenge. You have to trust in the model and the process. So it's kind of like Thomas Edison said, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work. Something to remember as you're building and testing things out. And so, like I've kind of mentioned earlier, being adaptive means being able to entertain different ideas without necessarily accepting them, trying things, seeing what works, and then rolling with it. So interview questions there. What's been your top channel for growth historically? What's a project you're currently working on right now? And what's the biggest challenge you faced in the last year? And how did you overcome it? What did you take away from it? Those are the things that I typically look for to test out the adaptability of people. Third thing the last point is being a digital citizen. So, there's actually never been a better time to be in marketing and growth right now. The landscape is exploding, apps have unbundled, they're cheaper and more accessible than ever before. So, you want to be aggressive in testing new things and go to events, know what's coming up, subscribe to the right groups, join different Slack channels, and then be willing to test out and try new things. We're basically looking for technically inclined folks who are always dabbling in the latest in the tools. That being said, there's a discipline you want to bring, which is to be pragmatic, thoughtful, and balanced in where to actually invest. Because ultimately, while you're going to test lots of things, you need a core stack that's going to help you automate and grow. And this is a view of ours, for example, and you see the components: billing, CRM, predictive scoring and attribution, content and CRO with WordPress, Instapage, Optimizely. You capture leads from many different sources, including Eventbrite tonight. You're receiving emails from Autopilot that are zapped into Autopilot from Eventbrite, and then there'll be follow-ups afterwards. We're also pulling in product data and having various types of analyzing our funnel metrics for online conversion and so on. So it's both dabbling, trying, experimenting, but also having a framework around what your core stack is and how you're going to use that to grow your business, and inversely, understanding how your business is growing and thinking about what needs need to be solved and what can be solved with technology rather than people. And another way of putting that is usually that frees you up to be generating more leverage with your time as opposed to cutting jobs. So I'm going to transition to some findings from this recent State of Industry report we did. Again, surveyed 505 marketers all over to understand where they're investing, what strategies they're taking to achieve growth, and what channels and tactics are working. So some of the key takeaways: the high-performing marketers attaining 80% or more of their lead or performance goals. They grow revenue 58% faster, are more likely to be in touch with their audience at least on a weekly basis, and generally have more satisfied customers. So this infographic kind of breaks out some of that right there. You can see things like they're using more marketing automation. So I'm going to drill into sort of what are some of the things, the do's and the don'ts that we learned from this, as well as matching in from other areas. So first is map and optimize the customer journey. 71% of these high performers have defined an initiative or are actually mapping out their journey and have some working document internally like this. And 88% of those said this customer journey initiative is driving great results. And again, this sounds really esoteric, but again, at Zendesk, we started this thing called the Conversion Committee, and it led ultimately to a whole business unit, but it was essentially the beginning of growth there. We brought different stakeholders together, decided where our data is coming from, mapped out the entire journey and every touch point, and identified areas where we're either not doing things well, we aren't optimized, we aren't doing anything at all, or where we have duplicates and so on. So we've done something similar, map out the needs from, we have this structure we call the Acquire, Nurture, Grow framework. So how do you acquire new leads and customers? Turning anonymous users into online leads into workable sales leads if you have a sales team. And then from there, once you have customers, how do you educate them, grow them, drive enablement, and retain and basically increase customer lifetime value over time? So some of the outcomes of doing this is prioritizing the lowest areas of the areas of lowest hanging fruit for the organization. So we've optimized our trial conversion process. We've built out lead nurturing that now is delivering leads that convert, like I said before, 3x the base rate with 1.4 times as much revenue. So lead nurturing works really well, and we're building a relationship with them. onboarding new customers in an automated and manual fashion, developing personal contextual experiences across channels, and conducting high-frequency testing, which can be as simple as trying out a new journey for a week or a new type of send or a new approach, a new channel, and then measuring back on that a week later. The second thing we saw is the fastest growing companies, if you look at this on the left-hand side, the high performers actually prioritize brand awareness and customer experience first over ads. Whereas with everybody else, the order was almost the same. Number one was ads, or customer acquisition, excuse me, number two is brand awareness. So in the long run, what really moves the needle is getting yourself known out there. And that means a combination of factors from developing better content generation strategies, building out a customer experience that people are going to talk about, refer, and retain online, as well as driving better retention. You know, 30 Factors Autopilot, we do plenty of ads, we do a lot of retargeting. But the way we think about it is rather than trying to drive people to sign up for trials, we use a lot of content, build best practices, boost that content on ads, and then in turn bring them into our retargeting and our nurturing funnels, which in turn converts people into customers and trials at a much lower CPL. And by the time they do, they're pretty warmed up. And like I said, conversion rates tend to be a lot higher. On the third of the other side is building a foundation, a strong foundation in SEO. So on-site SEO is having pretty early on, like anchoring around base keyword terms and having a strategic keyword glossary for your organization that all your different activities can pull from. Committing to content creation, like we do 3 posts a week and we now have a lot of contributors as well. But early on, that was just done with one content marketer, myself, and one demand gen, and then we had a growth developer, and that was it. And we just basically built and just committed to the strategy, and now downstream, that's our number one source of inbound traffic. And then the third is developing inbound linking strategies. So we have Flight School, which was initially designed for both enablement of customers and as a big sort of SEO top of funnel play. And what we've seen now is it really sort of drives better retention and enablement of our users. Whereas our blog is a major attractor, and then we do a lot of offsite SEO link building. So we're on the Slack and the Segment and Salesforce marketplaces. We do a lot of contributed posts. We do work with the press and get inbound links from there. So having a really strong foundation and online, in the online links and online and on-site and off-site SEO. Fourth is using marketing automation to scale. So as I said, my first company, which I co-founded and sold, I built, we started off with no tools, and then we implemented Salesforce and Marketo and integrated all of our data and used it to build out this online acquisition engine. And one of the things that the company that acquired us bought was this self-service engine that sort of did this really personalized touch to our customers. And they were an enterprise business that had purely just focused on direct selling. And it was a really bizarre experience for me to go through and think that this was entirely net new. And that was like 2009. Years later now, a lot of companies use marketing automation, but it's been typically in the realm of either companies getting big discounts from the traditional vendors or more mid-market enterprise, whereas today there's services like Intercom, which will do a lot. There's services like Autopilot and others that will make it a lot easier. So you can automate from early. And our first year of growth, like I said, we were a tiny team, and we just automated everything, and it created a way for us to really be able to fuel the online awareness and scale up. So some good examples of companies that have done great with that who are our customers. Instapage, landing page builder, generated 30K of new ARR. They took 55,000 contacts they'd sent 10 email blasts from MailChimp to in a row and had 0 responses from. Took those 55,000, uploaded those, built out a nurture journey and ran them through this 8-week nurture track that linked all their best blog content. And of that, they generated 27 paid customers and 30K of new ARR, converting at 6x their base online sign-up rate. So it's an example where when you set that up and you just start to nurture all your old unconverted leads or leads you're compiling from trade shows and so on, it can be it's typically actually a great success point for new customers. So it works. Lyft, is another customer. They do it for the enterprise business, building B2B pipeline. They saw a 600% increase by automating the follow-up, qualification, and routing of their leads. So people who contacted them about corporate travel insurance, or corporate travel solutions, and then routing to the right area, to the right teams in their organization, and excluding non-targeted accounts. But they had not been running automation prior to that, and had a huge uplift in their ability to grow their pipeline and then close business. And the third is live chat, which is a popular chatting service. They've done a lot of amazing things with automation, and one of them is, as I learned in a webinar with them 2 years ago, One of them was they drove 122 new customer reviews with the simple, the NPS question that they automated, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague. Anytime they had and we do this ourselves now using a tool called Delighted. Anytime someone responds with a 9 or 10, we actually trigger a follow-up saying, thank you for your recent positive feedback. Would you mind reviewing us on GetApp or G2 Crowd or Yelp or whatever services in your area? And they saw terrific success there with generating huge amounts of reviews that became a pretty big source of new signups for them, and did so without sort of breaking the trust of their customers, because they were pretty open about the fact they were doing it. So 5 is getting personal, works. So I think I mentioned a few minutes ago, but a 4x increase in conversion is what we see with the usage-based personalization during the trial. If we see that somebody hasn't added a tracking code, for example, a few days in, then Mike, our CEO, pops up and says, I see you haven't added it, learn how to here. And that, we get really high open rates and response rates in those, like 25% of people will click that and go through, and it immediately has had a meaningful impact on the activation, which in turn drives conversion. Long before now, there's a company called Zapier, and the CEO was speaking at Zendesk, and he was using something called the Django Drip, which is an open source based, basically segmented automation tool. And every time they would bring in a fork in the road and further personalize it based on what integrations you were looking for when you signed up online, they'd see this big uptick in the number of their signups that converted into paid customers. So, it's been around for a long time, but it's only really just picking up that it's really easy these days to get very specific in an automated fashion, and in doing so, have big impacts on the conversion and the pointy end of the stick. And the 6 is learn predictive and multi-touch attribution. A lot of what I've talked about today earlier about being brand focused, not ad focused, and so on. If you use Facebook ads and retargeting, and you're heavy with Google and all the big major ad networks, they have hungry tracking codes that will claim a lot of the attribution purchase. So last touch still gets a lot of what is the what typically gets credit for purchases today. But in reality, if you go break out all the touches to the life cycle of a customer online, they might have heard about us today, for example, and then you go read a blog post because you see an email, and then you go download the ebook I've been talking about, and then you maybe later on will be targeted, and you'll see an ad in Facebook, and you click that, and you go and you sign up for trial, and let's say you did buy. Then Facebook would say that's a Facebook customer, and that would be a pretty easy way to be measuring. Whereas if you use a multi-touch system and you build out a custom model that attributes weight to each of these different touch points, it gives you a very different view of what's really working and what's not working. And it's really critical, so as you're choosing where to invest finite resources, you got to make sure that if you're really going heavy with content, that you get the results that you need. Part of the reason why we decided to work with Visible is, Google Analytics has a built-in multi-touch free package you can just go and use, and it's pretty limited. What we saw was that our paid channels were getting over-reported by as much as 30%, and some of our non-paid channels under-reported by as much as 45%. And that's when I was like, yes, we need to, it's time. We've been initially just focused on pure growth, now it's time to get smarter. So what are the don'ts? And we're down to the last 3 slides here. What would Taylor say? So 1, don't get too, this is a bit controversial, but don't get too attached to your job description. Now, I'm not saying here, don't get too attached to your company or job. Hopefully you like your company and you stay there. But this is actually a spectrum from what HubSpot did early on. They would break most of their internal projects into the spectrum of low importance, high importance, low visibility, high visibility internally. And what they found is that, being a very data-driven company, they looked at which of their employees were more the traits of an internally successful employee. What they saw was that the people who continuously stuck their hand up and took on those highly important but low visibility projects internally, whether it's building out an operational framework or putting in place some new data or building a new sort of content platform that wasn't going to get a whole lot of light of day, they actually in the long run turned out to be some of the most successful employees in the company. And I think it just goes to show that, especially if you're in earlier stage companies, one of the great things, you get to wear many hats, and you shouldn't be, the marketing world is constantly changing, and so you need to be ready to accept that all the strengths that you have today won't necessarily make you successful tomorrow or a year or 2 or 3. You need to be building new assets and trying new things, and at the same time being able to provide, have a bigger impact in the organization. So one thing we try and do is create this culture and an environment for high productivity so that people move outside their sort of traditional silos and try new things, while at the same time, of course, you have to balance this with prioritization. But one is, again, don't get too attached to your job description. 2 is don't tell, instead show and teach. It's pretty cliche and pretty traditional, but it's something that I think about every single day in everything that we do. Are we telling you how to do something, or are we showing you through examples? Is somebody telling me something or showing me through examples? We learn by seeing what other people are doing and what's working, what's not working. And if you can bring that in, then you're providing value in education, and doing so, building a trusted relationship that in turn will drive into, that can be structured through nurturing, it can be structured through retargeting and acceleration. You can still build a funnel around this, but by showing rather than telling. And here you can see you don't need the re-explaining department if you show properly all the way through. Then the impacts are, again, we look at, for example, our nurture funnel, we get triple conversion. A lot of our nurturing is about education, not about saying, hey, come buy Autopilot or sign up for a trial. And the last point is don't lose sight of the prize, right? So there are many talented people in the world, a lot of people who are really good at what they do. Those that succeed in startups and enterprises alike are those who execute best. And that means that, and one way they do that is never lose sight of what's the most high priority matters that you should be working on, while in the daily churn that we all have of things that just take up our time. So what are some ways to do that? One is be mission oriented. In everything you do, whether it's an email you're about to send, or a blog post you're about to write, or a feature you're building, or a meeting you're about to attend, be prepared, be ready to be creative, analytical, adaptive, and digital, and what's the outcome that I'm looking for from this meeting specifically? What point do I need to leave behind? What point do I want to take away? 2 is establish regular routines. So whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, like every single Sunday night, I go through and I check my calendar and plan it for the week. I do my to-do list that's in a Google Doc, and it's got like 10 points, and it says, no matter what happens this week, I have to get through these things. And then each morning I wake up and I check that automated report I mentioned that shows me areas we need to focus on today and this week. And then the third is never be afraid to ask for help with prioritizing, whether it's your boss, whether it's your team members. We're all on the grind every day, but I think it's really important that in the long run, you want to throw your weight into those long-term high-value initiatives that your team and your customers do quietly look for from you, even if they aren't saying it to you regularly. So asking people around you to help with prioritizing, especially your boss, is a great thing to do. I love it when people on my team say, hey, I've got 18 things going right now, where should I be focused most? And they go away, and it can really lead to a lot of time saving, and sort of occasionally we all need that help me see the trees from the forest moment. So to summarize, top performers, creative, analytical, adaptive digital citizens. The do's: map your customer journey, focus on brand, not ads. Build your SEO foundation, use automation to scale, get personal, and learn predictive and attribution. And the don'ts: don't get too caught up in what you should be doing every single day. Know that you want to be focused on things that have the most impact. Don't sell, you should show, is what that should say. Not sell, don't show. Is you want to show, not tell. And then third is don't lose sight of the prize. So focus on those high impact long-term initiatives that you need to do in addition to the day-to-day. So I'll leave you with, what number will you wake up and grow tomorrow? That's it.